How's it going, guys? This is Lataro here at the Tectonic Depot, and today we're going to be disassembling and reassembling a 3190 Chromebook. We're going to go ahead and get started with the bottom cover. You notice we got a bunch of screws down there. Good thing about these devices is that it's pretty simple. We don't need much. We just need a good old-fashioned Phillips head driver and a plastic spudger. That should be enough. But I'll keep to the side just a little pry tool just in case something comes up, an instance that I need to pry. But chances are we're just going to be using the spudger and the Phillips head. I'm going to go ahead and get started undoing these bottom cover screws. It's just 1, 2, that'll be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bottom cover screws in total. If you notice here, this one has a little bit of damage on the bottom cover, so in a repair situation, we would replace the bottom cover. And actually, the good thing about these screws is they kind of hang on the bottom cover. I'll go ahead and demonstrate that. I'm going to grab my plastic pry tool. In like a normal situation, we would use a pry tool just to kind of wedge it in a corner, and then I can just pull up from here and just kind of run my fingers along, pulling up like this, pressing down with my thumb on the actual palm rest of the device, and just run along and just unclip the bottom cover. And that comes out. You see that the screws are actually dangling from the bottom cover, so we don't really even have to put those on the magnetic mat. All right, so what do we have here? Personally, I like to have the board kind of facing me as opposed to the battery. So I'll flip it upside down and then just give a little visual inspection just to start, just to see where we have some brackets. We have a bracket right here. This right here is the heat shield for the CPU, which is underneath. And I can tell just based off of the fact that this is copper, which retains heat. So that's telling me that this is to take heat away from the CPU. And we'll go ahead and expose that real quick. We got a screw here. And then being that these are all kind of similar screws, usually I would kind of just pile them all together. But just to demonstrate, I'll go ahead and kind of make the shape of how it's coming out of the device. So we got that square shape, which is this little square right here. And then we have the 2 diagonal screws that go on opposite ends. That comes up, and that's going to be the heat shield. And we can tell because it's got thermal paste on it. All right, we'll keep that aside with our bottom cover. I'm going to kind of be using the bottom cover just to place different components. And then the first thing we want to do from here is go ahead and get that battery disconnected. I'm going to grab a nylon spudger. And then there's little tabs on either side that you can put the spudger against. I usually just push up this tape right here so I can get a grip on the cable, and then kind of pull back with this hand as I push with the spudger against that notch. And then that just comes out like that. And we'll go ahead and start by removing the battery, which we got 3 screws right here. Go ahead and make the shape of the screws on our magnetic mat. And then I'll use the nylon spudger again just to kind of get underneath the battery and start prying kind of upward. There we go. There's a little bit of tape underneath here, so you just want to make sure that you're slowly pulling up It's the battery. And you can keep the cable connected to the battery. These can also be swapped out, but I usually just keep them kind of all in one. Put that to the side in my bottom cover. Okay, and I'm just gonna go ahead and isolate the motherboard. So I'll go ahead and just kind of find all the connectors. We have this, which is the keyboard connector. This one leads over here, which is the trackpad. So I'll get those, lift it up. So what I do here is this is a little latch. I just get my spudger and kind of press down on the latch and push up like that. You kind of just flick it up a little bit. Same over here. Those come up. We get that pulled back. Okay. And then I have a few brackets here. So I'll go ahead and get these removed. This is the bracket for the USBs. And then we have the LCD cable bracket. Get that removed. And then one more bracket on this side. And then if you notice here, I'm just kind of putting the screws next to the component just to try to stay as organized as I can. And kind of working linearly so that whenever I am reassembling the device, I can backtrack and just work my way back to down to the brackets just to make it easier for me. We have one screw here. Might as well get the drive removed. Keep that here. And then this is the SSD of the device. Keep that to the side. All right. So we have the LCD cable over here. And I'm going to go ahead and use my nylon spudger again to just kind of flick it upward like I did with the other connectors. And then just kind of wedge my spudger in so I can get a grip, and then I can just pull back. Okay. And now it looks like we have some push-in connectors around here. So we'll go ahead and get those removed. This is for the speaker. You notice this cable leads over here, and that's left, right speaker. So that gets disconnected. We'll go ahead and remove that. And then we'll go ahead and place it on our bottom cover. And I guess we can kind of just put the components where they would go back on top of the bottom cover just to keep everything organized. Now we have the CMOS battery that gets disconnected as well. I can just grab the cable itself and just pull back. And then we're just going to be working our way around the device. This is the daughter board connector. This leads to this little daughter board here. And then there's actually a miniature daughter board here that's responsible for the headphone jack. But it looks like both of those are integrated. So I'll go ahead and get that removed. You know, just to be on the safe side, I will extend my work mat. And then I'll go ahead and place the screws according to how I took them out of the device. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'll go ahead and pull back this connector and just start slowly working down the cables because there is a little bit of adhesive at the bottom here. It's a little sticky, but all you have to do is kind of get underneath it and just kind of push up. And then this whole assembly is your headphone jack. And then we got your power button and volume buttons here. That aside, we got the CMOS battery disconnected, and I'm just gonna grab my spudger. Same thing here with the adhesive at the bottom. I kind of just slowly work around the battery just to make sure I'm not puncturing anything. That comes out. The CMOS battery is pretty much like the BIOS reset battery. So if there's any sort of issues with like boot or startup, then that would be the first thing to reset whenever you run into issues like that. But yeah, they'll always look like this. It's kind of like a coin-shaped battery. And anytime you see that little coin-shaped battery on the board, just know that that's the CMOS battery. So we'll go ahead and remove this bracket right here. That's covering our network cables. And there's two little sockets right here. I kind of just pop them up like that. And just keep that aside. We have another screw right here. And we'll go ahead and put that with the board screw. So this right here is my board screw section. I'll just make sure I get all those screws removed. This is the palm rest camera connector. So we'll go ahead and get that popped out. And then this right here is the digitizer sensor, which is responsible for inputs on the screen. It's basically what gives you the ability to touch on the screen. If you didn't have the digitizer sensor, then it would just be an image. You wouldn't be able to give inputs into the screen. So that we get that disconnected. We'll pull that back and we'll kind of just look around just to make sure there's no other connectors. We got one more, which is the charge port. We'll get that unscrewed. This one's pretty easy. And then same thing here. I kind of just grab the cable and then push on either side of these notches with my spudger as I pull with my opposite hand. That comes out. If we got all the screws out, we should just be able to pull out the motherboard and it comes right out. So this right here is a 3190 2-in-1 motherboard. And we'll go ahead and just place that right here on top of our battery, just to keep it aside. And then we have our camera right here. There's a little bit of adhesive on the lens where it connects to the palm rest. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did over here with the daughter board. I kind of just shimmy my spudger in to where the lens is, which is around here, and just kind of pry up slowly. And that should just pop out like that. And you can kind of see it right there. The camera itself has like a bezel, that little metal bezel. That's where the adhesive is. And I guess you can kind of see it a little better right here on if I can point that out, right here, all that adhesive. And now we pretty much got all of the internal components out. The only thing that's left is the trackpad, which is this right here. So we'll go ahead and get that removed. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws in total. If you notice, these screws are a little bit wider than the board screws. So I'm just going to go ahead and keep them in their own little box. And then these look like they're all the same screws with the exception of one, which is this last one. I mean, I don't really have to, draw a shape with this one, but what I will do is keep all of those separate and just make a mental note of this top one, that this is slightly smaller. And then from there, I open up the lid a little bit and then I start pushing up against the trackpad from the palm rest. There's tape right here, so I just want to lift slowly. And then a little bit of adhesive on the flex cable. And there we go. That's your trackpad. we'll keep that aside for now. The majority of the time I'm fully disassembling the devices like this. In this case in particular, because it is a 3190, um, I am disassembling this to replace the palm rest, which would be where the keyboard sits right here. These anchor screws right here that hold down the lid, which is this, the screen, the whole lid assembly, uh, they actually, they're made of plastic, so they can break a lot of the times. I'll go ahead and show you how that looks. So if you notice here, we'll go ahead and just flip this up and then pull this back. So this is the palm rest. And that houses all of your internal components. So if there is a crack, say on the corner, if there's some chipping on the side, if there's these anchors, a lot of the times they get worn and they break because they're housed with plastic. So if they're housed with plastic, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is replace it. Um, but it depends on the device, because there are other devices where you wouldn't have to replace the entire palm rest in order to fix the anchors, because the anchors would be on the keyboard. And then this is the lid assembly. So this one's a touch screen. There's a touch sensor right here. This is your 40-pin LCD cable, which provides the image, touch, and then these network cables run all the way along the top right here, and that gives you Wi-Fi capability. I'll actually go ahead and open up this real quick. I usually use a kind of like a metal, I guess you can call it a spudger. It's like a metal variant of the spudger, and this helps me get into a corner. So I'll go ahead and find any corner and just kind of wedge the tip of the spudger into the corner and twist like this. And then slowly, there we go. And then once I hear that pop, I can kind of use my fingers and then just kind of start popping it slowly. Oh, this one's a little stubborn. So what I'm doing here is I don't want to force anything because I don't want to crack the plastic. These do have a tendency to break. And I'm kind of just finding where I feel resistance and slowly pushing out. There we go. And then just continue along the side. See if we can get this side. There we go. All right, so this is the back cover of the lid assembly. And then here we have the screen. And like I said, these network cables kind of run all along these little notches right here. And this is a network cable right here. The other one goes the opposite direction all the way over here. And then if you notice this here too, this is actually our webcam. And I'll go ahead and get that removed as well. Lift up the tape, and then I just press down on the cable itself and slowly pull to the left with this on the actual cam module. That's your webcam right there. Okay, and then this is the cam cable. It runs along. It's actually conjoined with the LCD cable, and that's why this is a 40-pin. Typically Chromebooks come in are 30-pin. which is less pins on the actual cable. And then this allows for the extra pins. 10 extra pins allows for the touch and also the capability of the webcam. It has the webcam and the touch data lines. And then yeah, that's pretty much the 3190 completely disassembled from the bottom.